A story a day.
That's the music that usually introduces the guests.
Yeah. That's the bed.
That's the bed.
Yeah.
And our guest today, my goodness, she's been through hell. She lost her mother to alcohol. So for all you alcoholics out there, whether you admit it or not, because most of us, the first thing is denial.
Denial. I don't ever go in denial.
Aye.
See alcohol.
Kamnye so simbaya.
Najua lakini uko in denial ya uze.
But she lost her mother to alcohol when she was just 14 years old.
Sad.
Imagine that. And a year later, guess what? She started drinking.
At 14?
At 50, a year
15.
after 14, yeah.
15.
Imagine that.
Akaanza drinking.
Akaanza hii kitu.
Where?
Yeah. Guess what? It went on for quite a while. She's going to tell us more about it. But today, she's been clean and sober.
Yeah.
For 4 years plus.
No booze.
No booze, no touch, no taste. Maybe once in a while, a little craving. But she has not touched anything.
Say no to alcohol.
That's right.
So ile ngoma ya shabuzi, ya tipsy.
Yeah, tipsy hawezi. Hapana.
Hawezi identify now.
No. She's also the author of Woman Fire Grace. Which chronicles her 15-year addiction and recovery journey. Wow.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
In the studio today, joining us. Thanks so much for your time, Rebecca
Mkyeli.
Thank you for having me.
Mkyeli.
Yeah, it's across, almost there. It's Mkyeli.
Mkyeli.
Yes.
15 years. Okay, hold on. Before 15, right? So you watched your mother deteriorate.
Yes.
Right.
It was, and being a child at that time, you don't know what's happening. This is an adult. It's your mother. You can't raise your voice or ask questions to an African mother, let alone an intoxicated African mother. And so, there was kind of a resentment in our relationship because, one day you had a version that was bright and bubbly. The next day you had one that was seated in a room that was, curtains are closed, eyes are glossy. There's a bottle in front of her. You call her 5 times, she's not listening. So it really was crazy, you understand? So it really strained our relationship. And I remember when she passed, I was not in the country. I used to play cricket. And I traveled to Zambia for a conference by the British Council. And she dropped me at the airport. My flight was at 5 a.m. And she dropped me at the airport at midnight. She was actually too drunk to drive, so she called one of my uncles. And I remember I walked through departures and she was saying, okay, even though you don't want to say bye to me, get me something nice. I went to Zambia, I had a good time. I came back 5 days later and they told me she had passed in her sleep. Yeah.
Oh, when had she passed?
She passed the next day after she dropped me at the airport.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
And they didn't tell you?
They couldn't. I was in Zambia. This was 2004.
There's no
2005.
cell phones,
emails, yeah.
Good Lord. Was it hard liquor or what was
hard
it?
Liquor. She was doing like two, even here you call it mzinga, about 2 in a day. Yeah. I remember growing up when I was a kid, it was me she would send to the shop. Yeah. So when I got to secondary school, because when she died when I was in Form 3, so I don't know what was really happening, the gravity of the situation when I was away at boarding school. But growing up in primary, I did see what it was doing to her. She would pick me from school and I'd actually sit in bars with my mom till midnight. And when I had to go to school in the morning at 6.
Were you the only child?
In the country, I was the last born. As the only, I and the brother who follows me, but my brother went to secondary school earlier than I did, so I spent a lot more time with my mom during her danger years.
So, and where was your dad?
My father used to work here in Kenya. Yes, so he was away most of the time.
Did he know she was an alcoholic?
Of course he knew.
Yeah.
Yes, definitely.
And so the situation was out of control such that
it was.
She would tag you along.
Absolutely.
In the bar.
In uniform.
Yes.
And the people,
the patrons, what would they say?
I mean, it's no secret. Uganda, alcohol, like it's no one's going to ask you questions.
Really?
Yeah, no one's going to. It's like an open place. It's no one really asked questions. My job was just to sit there. They asked me, "What do you want to?" I say, of course, Fanta or like soda and chips and chicken, and my mom would just keep it coming. I'm not going to argue. I'm 9 years old. I have chicken and chips. I'm doing my homework. Yeah.
And you doze off sometimes.
Yeah. Sometimes, of course. Sometimes she'd put me in the car to sleep. Yeah. It would be like 3-4 nights a week.
And tell me, once she finishes drinking, would she get in the car and drive home?
Yes, she would.
after 2 muzingas.
Absolutely.
Mzingas in
Of course, she
Mzingas.
wasn't doing 2 in a sitting every day. But whenever we'd go to a bar, she would do beers. Sometimes she would have a mzinga. But when it was home, she would have her stash to be 2 bottles a day.
Huh?
Yeah.
Were you scared at some point?
At some point, I wasn't scared because I didn't comprehend it at the time. You know, you ask yourself, why would somebody waste themselves like that? It's not until I grew up and it actually happened to me that I understand that there are things that people cope with that they're not able to express to the world. And so they find comfort in something that doesn't judge them, that doesn't ask them questions. And unfortunately, that thing is very destructive to them, you know. But bondage is really sweet. That's the truth.
Away from her death, memory gani zingine uko nazo in terms of her alcoholism?
My mother was a generous person. She was sweet. She was an entrepreneur. She was beautiful. Oh my goodness, she had beautiful hair. And one thing, and she was an extrovert. She loved hosting people at home. And also, she just had a big heart. At any one point in my life growing up, we had relatives in our house living with us, cousins. You know, she always made sure if nobody could come to mom and say, Mom, I don't have this, or Mom, I don't have school fees. Impossible. She would say, why? When I have money, when we have a roof over our head. And so that was just her. In hindsight, I just come to understand that there's some things that maybe she was dealing with. And she, you know, she's surrounded by kids. You're a grown up, all you have is kids. You know, you can't tell them your issues. And I think that ate her up from the inside until, you know, literally, yeah.
And your siblings, were they also aware of this?
They were abroad. They were aware, but they didn't know the extent to which, you know. I was a child, you know. I also didn't know how to express what I was seeing. All I was seeing was Mom is coming out. She's not herself. She's yelling. She's throwing things. You know, you don't understand what's happening. But I come to understand that they understood that something was going on. But being a child, that wasn't made... It wasn't made very clear to me as to what was happening until much, much later in life that I actually understood she was dealing with alcohol use disorder.
So she passes away. What did the relatives tell you? Did they tell you what it was?
No one told me anything. You know, I came from Zambia and I found the school bus from my high school was there. You know, there's so many cars. I actually got to read the post-mortem report, I think, much later on. Nobody showed me anything. No one wanted to tell me anything. You know, they just said Mom went to sleep and never woke up, and that's it. And so I lived like, that's all I knew for a while, until I think it was almost a year later when I fell onto the post-mortem report. It was hidden somewhere. And so I managed to read it. And I got to know so many other things I really hadn't known for the first 15 years of my life. Yeah. But yeah, that's when I got to know that she had acute alcohol attributable liver cirrhosis. She had kidney issues, she had pancreas issues. Basically, her insides were being eaten up by alcohol. That's how much alcohol she was taking, that her liver had become scarred. And how her skin had actually, towards her death, I remember, I even have the photos, her eyes were yellow, her skin, she was a light-skinned woman, but now she was yellow. She had jaundice. That's how bad it was, yeah. And was she able to balance that with work? My mother was an entrepreneur, so she was, you know, she would, I believe she managed to be able to put people in position to manage the businesses so that she didn't have to leave the house. At some point, she would just be in the house. If we had visitors at home, it went from being Mom, the super host, to Mom, the woman who was carved up in her bedroom. And if visitors came home, they had to go to her bedroom and sit there with the light off when she's inside the bed. That's how bad it became.
Clearly, you grew up well off.
I won't lie, God blessed us.
Yes, because
yes. You know, my father is a retired pilot, commercial pilot. Yes. Yeah. Okay.
So now, what prompted you to go down that road?
That's a very good question. It was peer pressure.
Oh.
I was not a depressed child. In my senior 4 vacation, I was sitting at home, and a friend of mine from school. That was a time when we had all these cheap, you know, how many shillings per second on phone. You know, you're 15-year-old, guys are confusing you on phone. So we talk on phone all night until one day this friend of mine tells me, hey, I have my brother's car, let me come pick you and take you to such and such a discotheque. Back in the day, there were discotheques. And I'm like, I'm 15, how dare you speak to me like that? That's how our father raised us. Do you understand? He made home so comfortable that we didn't need any external, you know. And so eventually he convinced me. He picked me up at 11 in the night, and I had my first night out and my first taste of alcohol, and it was just amazing. And I remember the next day, I don't remember how I came home. All I know is I woke up, I was in my clothes, my shoes, I was holding my bag. My phone was on the wardrobe, and so I woke up, my head was pounding, my mouth was dry, and so I pick up my phone, and the first thing I did was call my friend and I tell him, where are we today? And that was the beginning of my 15-year downward spiral with alcohol.
You got hooked immediately?
Immediately.
Well, was it beer? Was it mixed?
No, it was, I don't want to mention the brand, but it was a cider. And if you, I'll just give keywords.
Yeah.
Red and black. So you know, you already know. Yeah. So it was a sweet cider. Yeah. Because I'm a sweet tooth. And so when I entered the bar, this guy is 15 years old like me, but the bartenders know him. And this was a major discotheque. And so they asked me, what do you want to drink? And all I could see were all these, by those days, the beer bottles were not small like they are now.
Huge.
They were these huge, they were ugly. They reminded me of Mom. So there were all these Mizinga, they reminded me of Mom. So I looked around, and at that time, that particular company, this is now 2006, they were launching in Uganda, and they had a marketing campaign of their fridges that were illuminating light in whatever dark place. You just look for that source of light and you see the branding. And I said, whatever that is, give it to me. It looks like soda, it looks sweet. So I took 1, 2, and I'm a sweet tooth. I didn't know what intoxication felt like, so I didn't know I was getting drunk.
And you never stopped?
I did. My friend told me that I took about 12 in the space of 2 hours.
At 15
and
years.
it was reggae dancehall night. I've always loved reggae dancehall. So 1 minute I'm seated on the bar stool, the right shoulder is shaking, then the left shoulder, then the right leg. Next thing you're up on the stool. The rest is history.
What?
Yeah.
So how bad did it get in those 15 years?
I will definitely try to summarize the 15 years. I mean, at first it was okay. It was just, a teen having fun, getting drunk, living the fast life. It wasn't until 3 years later when I got into university that actually the negative effects started to manifest, where now I was using my tuition to party, to drink, where I was not attending school, class. So I dropped out of the first university. I told my dad I needed a change. I had to lie to him. I asked him, I said I needed a change. He took me to a second university. First sem was okay. Second sem, same pattern happened.
Were you drinking daily?
Daily.
With friends?
With friends.
From campus, yeah.
Yes, like it was. And because now my tolerance was built, I was now sitting. I would sit in the bar and I was looking for people who could drink. I'm talking all-nighters. So I was seated with like PhD students, master students. And it's so funny. They get captivated when they see a young woman who can handle her liquor. You understand? So
you were able to handle.
Oh, friend. We have in Uganda we have what we call Jack Bowers. If you've watched the series 24, so it got this bad. To the end of the story, it got to a point where when I was on the street, when I was homeless, I was actually doing Jack Bowers. Like we start from Wednesday till Sunday, no rest, no sleep. It happens. It's so normal.
In Uganda.
Yes.
It's
a very normal thing.
Were you still a sweet tooth then?
No, the time I was homeless.
No. With the PhD guys, were you still the sweet tooth?
So of course when you get to university now you get introduced to all these things. So now I was drinking the very drink that my mom used to take every day, and I got so hooked to it. And so it moved from there to now that's when I got into nicotine, and then that's when I got into marijuana as well. To make it worse, I loved reggae and dancehall. So it was just I did anything and everything until I think it was 2010 where I had an incident and I said, Rebecca, we need to choose a poison, otherwise you're going to die, Yeah. So alcohol was the poison that I chose, alcohol and nicotine. And just to summarize how bad it got, I got out of the second university. My father found out that I wasn't studying. I was just chewing tuition and drinking and doing all of that. And
he found all that out?
Yeah, he found out. Wow. Basically, the second time I failed university, I said, I can't tell Dad this time. What am I going to tell him? So basically, he would send tuition from Nairobi, and then I would pay for hostel, and then I drink and party. So then I come home for holidays, like I've been studying and things like that. So he found, I think, during the third year, when you're supposed to write a thesis, a dissertation, they looked at how I was living at home and they said, this one is not writing any dissertation. I would leave the house at 4 p.m., come back in the house at 7 a.m., sleep, leave at 4. They said, this one, there's no research this person is doing. So they called the university. They went to the university and the university said, this student, oh no, here is her sleep. We'll also her in first year, first sem. And that's how they found out. So they shipped me to Nairobi to a convent. Long story short, I was expelled from the convent for cigarettes. That's a whole different story. Yes. So they shipped me back to Kampala, and this time my father is like, you're going to be in the house, but I'm not enabling you. Find your own money, find your own. I'm not going to let you, be consumed by the same thing that killed your mom.
Right. So
here I am. I have an attitude, foolish pride, and everything is going wrong. I said I'll find my own way. So eventually I got a job. Somehow I got a job. That was when digital marketing was on the rise. I got a job. First 3 months were good. The next months everything started crumbling
because of
alcohol. Because now I'm making more money, the most money I had ever seen in my life. Absolutely no responsibility at all. I was in debt, serious debt, left, right and center. That's one of the biggest things that really crushed me, the debt. And then let's just say I fired myself from that job before they could fire me. I basically saw it coming. So I fired myself. There were complaints left, right and center. I was handling very huge clients. One time a client actually said, you guys sent us an account executive who reeked like a distillery and who reeked like a packet of cigarettes. You understand? Some days I was going to the bar and I'll be in the bar till 7 in the morning and I connect straight to work.
What?
It was a very common occurrence. It's actually a common occurrence in Kampala.
Would you eat
very
in
common.
Between at least?
Those are details, really. Food. Yeah, those are details. Like,
what else would you do apart from the
what are you
drinking?
like
What else would you do?
I mean, apart from the drinking,
Yeah.
no, it was alcohol, cigarettes.
That
became standard. That became, and I thank God, like that's where I stopped, because that was the stage where a lot of the people I used to drink with now escalated to higher drugs. I've buried a lot of my friends because they escalated to
Hard
meth,
stuff.
bad low grade heroin. They were excommunicated from their families. They're literally street urchins at this age, literally street urchins, from very prominent families, living in trap houses in ghettos. It's very painful. But anyway, long story short, I fired myself from the job, found myself another job. Same thing happened. Clients were complaining I wasn't showing up for work. Fired myself from that job. An incident happened at home. My father came and finally he said, I don't understand what's going on with you. When I come back from where I'm going, I don't find you in my house. So he kicked me out of the house, and from 2015 to 2020 February 7th, I was homeless on the streets of Kampala.
Where were you living?
Anywhere and everywhere. Buildings, taken up in restaurant bathrooms, internet cafes, bars. There's a time I DJ'd at a bar for free just to get a free place to fall on the days when the Jack Bowers had become. Because as hard as you think you are, your body's going to shut down.
Yeah.
2 days, 3 days, 4 days, 5 days.
For sure.
And so there's a guy who I used to go for their quiz nights because I used to love like knowledge and things like that. So I'd go for their quiz nights, and he just took a notice of me. And he used to love reggae music. I loved reggae music, so I started playing their music. My big brothers were DJs, so they taught me how to DJ, basic DJing. So I would go to the bar and I would DJ. I know my transitions, I play. And so eventually he gave me a roof over my head, and he said, in exchange for playing my music here, for being my DJ, I will give you some beer and a plate of chips. And also, whenever you want to fall, there's a couch here it was called the dungeon, a very dark section of the bar, the dungeon. And so I said, psh, deal of a lifetime, So now I could party properly, roam the streets, knowing I can fall in the dungeon whenever. So yeah, that was it.
I hope there was a shower in that.
Yeah, like the hygiene bits of it. How did you handle that?
Yeah, well, before I got the accommodation at the bar, hygiene was difficult. So what would happen is I would have a handbag. In the handbag, I would have like a towel, a toothbrush, sponge. So in the morning after, basically I would survive by sitting in bars all night because that was my familiar place. You sit in the bar to pass time. Of course, you know how men work. They see you. And that's the thing about Ugandan bars. Like there's this Ubuntu in the bar. It's how do you be drinking and someone has no drink? A guy will just pay your bill for the entire night. He won't even talk to you. He'll just look over, call a waitress and say, sort of for the night. He won't even say hi to you.
That was music to your ear.
Happiness. You understand? So I said, I can actually hack this thing on the streets. And so
you had a starter pack in the handbag.
Yeah, and so basically any small money that I would get, begging friends on Facebook and things like that, I would buy cigarettes or like get food. What food was I even eating? Because I had no appetite. My taste buds my palate had changed to hard liquor now. That's all I just wanted to consume. And so a lot happened on the streets. I almost lost my life so many times.
How?
Hey, I once woke up in a place where I received news that my eldest brother, who lived in the UK, had passed, also from alcohol complications. The same way mom died. He went to sleep and never woke up. And so it hit me really hard. So this was 2018. I had been on the streets for about 3 years now. I didn't know Monday from Thursday. I didn't know Saturday from whatever. I had lost so much weight. My people were, anyone who would meet me, people who used to know me, they would run away from me. Family had rejected me. Do you understand? So I literally was existing. And so when I got the news, I cried. I remember I was in a bar, I was very drunk. I cried and I said, you know what? I wasn't confident enough to say I'm going to kill myself. But I said, I'm tired of this thing called life. If it means going out, we go out. And I was going to do it the only way I knew how. Said I'm going to drink.
To death.
To death. The only problem is, I don't know if it was a problem or I think it was what God used. My tolerance was way up there. So I started drinking day 1. I did Jack Bauer 1, Jack Bauer 2. Now on Jack Bauer 3, I was playing music somewhere and some guy walked up to me and he said, hey, I own a bar somewhere here. I have been coming here. You play really well. Can you be part of the opening lineup? I was so drunk. I said, yeah, it's okay. Just find me here in the evening and let's go. So we went with him. We got to the other place and I think he noticed something was off with me. I remember when we got to his bar, he asked me and said, would you like to eat something? I said, no, bring me my drink. Everyone knew the DJ's drink. So they brought me the mzinga of that flavor, whatever it was. I remember I took some. 9 p.m. I jumped on the decks and that was the last thing I remember, seeing the decks. The next day I woke up, I was in a room. There's a saying in Luganda, directly translated, it says, a drunkard never loses their way home. Even in my drunkenness, I knew my familiar spots. I knew the buildings where I would bribe askaris and say, let me fall here till morning. I knew the places I would sleep. So I woke up in a very small white room. I looked around and I said, Rebecca, where are we? I said, Rebecca, where are we? And I looked to my right and there was a man sleeping next to me. In this point, I am super drunk, super euphoric. I can't comprehend anything. So I stagger off of the bed. My clothes were on. I stagger off of the bed and walk to the door. So my plan was I was going to open the door and walk out and leave this person, whoever he was. I didn't even know where I was. So I tried to open the door and it's locked. So that woke him up. So he wakes up and he says, excuse me. Me now, I just had a strange voice. My mind is racing everywhere. I just start screaming. So the man tells me, stop screaming. I shouted even more. Next thing I knew, his hand came over my head and he started to strangle me. And I assure you, this guy was not strangling me for jokes. When they say you're about to die, your life flashes before your eyes. It's actually true. So I started to see white, like the white, I was, they call it zoning out. And then I started to see dad, mom, my brothers. It's like, I'm going to die here. Like nobody knows where I am. Not friends, not family. Like in my head, I'm like, Rebecca, this is how it ends. With all the ambition we had, we thought we were going to be award-winning writers. We thought we were going to be, all this kind of, but that was what was going through my head. But eventually he let me, I had him say, are you going to stop screaming? And I let you go. I was so weak and I nodded. And he guided me to the bed. And he started to tell me what happened, how I got there. I got into the decks and I just passed out. I fell. So the bar, meanwhile, I don't know this bar. I didn't even know what I was doing in such a neighborhood. So one of the bartenders grabs me, puts me on the couch, and this man was seated next to the couch drinking with his friends. And so the bartender sold me to him for an equivalent of 600 Kenyan shillings.
What? And
so he carried him, brought me home. When we got home, he says that I was too drunk for him to do anything. And also he realized I don't want to be too graphic, but it was the time of the month for me. Never in my life have I been ever happy to see that time of the month. And so he asks me and he says, from even speaking to you, you don't seem like a kind of person. He told me how he was a military man. He showed me the car, which he brought me in. He said, in speaking to you, you don't seem like a kind of person who should be in such a neighborhood. Like you're not a hoe. You understand? You're not the kind of woman I would buy. What are you doing here? I didn't have time to explain. I wasn't thinking right. It was now like 8 in the morning. There was a bar I was supposed to play at. There's a bar that opens at 5 a.m. when other bars close. And that's where people go. So it was a comfort zone for us. So that's how Jack Bowers are sustained. You party at place A and then you come to this one that opens at 5. So I had to rush there to play. It was my happy place. My happy place was music and alcohol. So I rushed there.
You left him?
I left him.
And he let you go?
He let me go. I told him, excuse me, I have a place to go. First of all, I wasn't comfortable near him. I was just panicky, you understand? And then I'm high, as crazy. And so he gave me money. He gave me an equivalent of about like 1,000 Kenya shillings, I can say. And then he told me, please be safe. He really was trying to talk to me and tell me, please be safe. There are many young girls like you who people buy and disappear. He was telling me this like a fact, like this is something either he has done or he knows about. I said, you know what, I just want to get out of this room. I got out, I got my boda straight to the other bar. Guys are waiting for me. Oh, like, who have you been? We've been waiting for you. I said, you know what, I just bring me mzinga music. I began to play. That very day I was invited for a house party, and at that house party, I sliced my leg open. I have a very huge white scar on my right leg. I was a crippled, homeless person for like 5 months until, it was so bad. When my brother's body came from the UK, I didn't even attend his funeral because I was at a bar. Drinking. Yes. Not because I wanted to be there, but I asked people around me. I told them, guys, kindly help me. I lost my brother. I need transport to go. And I assure you the people said, we don't have money, but we have beer. And they got me beer. And I remember I sat there in my green dress. There's a green dress that I had. I got it from a friend's house. I used to carry it. Whenever I had somewhere to go, it's what I would wear if I was supposed to look presentable. And so I remember I sat there and I drank. And I even played music.
How'd you slice your leg?
How did I?
Slice your leg.
There was a pallet table in the middle of the apartment. And so what this person had done, he had turned his apartment into a mini bar. So when people are done drinking at certain bars, they would come to his house in the morning. And so they would sit on the floor around. Now, because I was a smoker, I used to like going to the balcony. They don't allow smoking inside. They allow in the apartment. So I was jumping the sea of people. Yeah, I had my drink in my hand from the other bar. We had walked. It was close proximity. So I'm jumping the sea of people. And then as I'm just about to reach this is how drunk I was. As I'm about to reach the door, just here, the balcony door, I had someone shout, okay, people, ever since I was a child, people have called me Che. It's short for Mkyeli. It's a nickname. So I just had someone shout, Che! And I turned and I'm like, yeah, what's up? And then like there was just this chorus of people saying, no, Che! And I was like, what? And there was just everyone shouted, your leg! And I said, what's wrong with it? And I looked down and my leg was wide open, like white. It's right here. It's right here. You can see it.
No, it's okay.
So
it's okay.
It's sliced open and it's white like this table. It was white. And listen, I was so euphoric. I'm looking at my leg sliced open, but I couldn't feel a single thing. And I'm like, what's going on? And in like a flash second, blood just began to spew. Then that's when I now started to see red. Everyone is jumping up and saying, oh my goodness, get her out, get her to the pharmacy. Da, 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 da. Next thing I knew, there was a group of basketballers. They were there. They carried me. I had my alcohol in the hand.
You're now living in behind.
Imagine. And they carried me. They took me to a pharmacy where I was supposed to be stitched. But because injections and needles are one of the things I am afraid of so much, I told the lady in my drunkenness, I told her, find a way, just clean the wound and put a bandage, but you're not stitching me up. After COVID-19 dropped, His Excellency Yoweri Kaguta Museveni announced the lockdown. There was a small house that my brother had got for me because some money had been dispatched because the Uganda National Roads Authority was constructing a road where my mother was buried. So money is dispatched to the family of those who were there. So my brother said, he looked for me on the streets, he found me and said, there's money for you available, but I'm not giving it to you. You want it, you come to my office, sign. But first order of business, I'm getting you a place. Gave me a broker, found me a very small bed-sitter, tiny, on the edge of town. So as I was there getting myself together, putting my CV together, interviews and all of this. This was March 2020. Lockdown hits. Museveni announces it, and so that was when I went through acute withdrawal. Acute withdrawal. I had spent a lot of the money that I had been given, and so I had no access to alcohol, no access to cigarettes. And I keep telling people that rehabilitation is not a place, it's a process. I went through rehabilitation in that place. Everything that I had been running from, my mind was now clear and sober. And I keep saying that a mind that's accustomed to chaos cannot comprehend clarity. I didn't understand what was happening in that moment. Now I do, but back then I didn't know. I was waking up in the middle of the night, sleepwalking. I was having lucid dreams. There was this emotional pain that I really wanted to numb with alcohol and cigarettes, but I couldn't. So I started to pick at the wound on my leg. You know, there's just so much. Like, my life became clear before me. Now I started to feel the things that I had forgotten, like from childhood, not being able to say bye to mom, condemnation for being a bad daughter, being rejected by family. And now it came clear to me that here I am, I'm about to hit 30 years old, and, you know, there's nothing to show for it in my life. And so that was where the mind work was done. I had to confront a lot of what I can call demons. And
was there a place you went for therapy? Was there a place possible for therapy?
In lockdown. No.
Oh, wow, yes.
No, it was just me and my mind.
Good Lord.
The worst battlefield is the mind, because you carry it with you everywhere you go.
Yeah.
I couldn't leave the house. I couldn't leave the room. I couldn't remove my head from my shoulders to take a break from what was going on. So it got to a point where I was either crying when I was awake or I was asleep.
And you didn't want to go back to alcohol?
I couldn't. I was broke, and it was lockdown. There was no access to the alcohol and the cigarettes.
Wow.
And now that you look back, and you were able to trace the root cause of your overindulgence, do you know what threw you into that dungeon, as you said? Yes,
it was peer pressure. Because I can assure you, a lot of people say, not even a lot of people, it happens. A lot of people fall into addiction because they look for something to cope. Yeah, an escape for something. I wasn't trying to escape something. I was at home minding my business, watching TV, and a friend called me to taste alcohol, which I did. I enjoyed it so much, and I said, this is something I want to live.
But you became your mother, you know that?
Even worse. I became even worse, to be honest.
And now that you're saying that not being able to say bye-bye to your mom, being rejected by family, being thrown out and stuff like that, do those things affect, and people who go through similar things or even worse, do you think they contribute towards people becoming
Absolutely.
alcoholics?
You see, this is the thing. You start out taking alcohol or any substance harmlessly or innocently, but you end up dealing with the problems that it causes in your life. It becomes the coping mechanism for the problems it causes in your life. And so it becomes a vicious cycle that you can't escape, right? So people get engulfed in the condemnation, the shame, the guilt that is caused by the bad decisions that they've made. And the problem is family members are not supportive enough. They're very quick to dismiss people who are dealing with addiction because they don't understand the kind of battle this person is fighting, right? And so looking back at my experience, that's what inspired me in that small room. I needed an outlet for the 15 years, that dark cloud of 15 years in me, and that's when I began to write the book, Woman, Fire, Grace. I actually wrote it on this phone. This one, I wrote it on this phone. All I had in that room was a mattress, an extension cable, one pillow, and a bed cover, no bed sheets, and a bulb.
Whoa.
That's all I had. No bed, a mattress on the floor. So I wrote that book in that dark room. I didn't know where it would take me. And
how did it do?
Very well. It's got me speaking engagements from Uganda, Kenya, Nigeria, the United Kingdom, just speaking about addiction awareness, and also being able to help people, especially women. Alcohol disturbs women a lot because we are very emotional gender, and our emotional management skills are terrible. So we shall self-medicate, so bad that social media has worsened it, that we've made it's become an aesthetic. Instead of dealing with a drinking problem, you go and become an alcohol influencer. You really see someone is struggling with alcohol, and I've seen it. A lot of socialites and influencers are now being demonized by the same media that celebrated them. It's happening.
Absolutely.
It happens. And I keep saying the sins of a woman are on her forehead.
The sins
of a woman on her forehead. I saw it with my mom, I saw it with me.
What does your brother treat? How does he treat you now?
My brother and I are good. We've always been good. Always.
And
always.
Dad?
Dad is okay. There are uncomfortable conversations that needed to be had in that room for me to actually, I needed to let out. There was so much heaviness, there was so much bitterness I was carrying, and so I had to have the uncomfortable conversations with, not just with Dad, but with family members, with friends. I was such a terrible friend, you understand? I was such a terrible colleague. So many bad things happened, and so I needed to, one, forgive myself, then also forgive those who hurt me, and then start seeking forgiveness from those who I had hurt. And I keep telling people who I come in contact with, who come and talk to me about their issues, I tell them forgiveness is not for the other person, it's for you. It's for you to move on. You don't get to choose how your actions affected people.
Right. If someone's listening to you for the very first time and they want more help and they see, they may want to contact you and...
my socials are Rebecca Mkyeli. Rebecca, REBECCA And I had 2 abortions, life-threatening ones. There's a lot alcohol is not the problem. Okay, the first thing I can say is alcohol is not the problem, it's a symptom of a problem. The bottle is not the issue. It is trying to cover or to numb something deeper. And alcohol doesn't just come with the liquid or the bottle, it comes along with other things. This is how you have people who are living a life of crime, you have people who are living a life of debauchery, sleeping around, ending up with all these things that come with sleeping around. I don't need to go into details, but it comes with so much dysfunction, right? There is no relationship, no version of a relationship with alcohol or any drug that ends well. And I keep saying this, it will eventually lead to death, right? So drinking alcohol, I essentially tell people, is like drinking poison slowly. So I always advise people, it's not beneficial to you. Find a way to remove it from your system. Seek the professional help that you need. But you need to first acknowledge that you have a problem. You need to acknowledge that you have a problem. That's the first step. My book is available at Nuria Store.
Nuria Store, nice.
Yes, Nuria Store. Yes. However, they're out of stock at the moment. We're reprinting.
Nice.
But if you'd like a soft copy, you can send me an email.
At Rebecca Mkyeli.
Yeah, Rebecca Mkyeli 55 at gmail.com.
55.
Yes.
Yeah. Why 55?
Incredible story.
Thank you.
Why 55 is asking?
Oh, 55? I love the number 5. It's a number of grace. So 55 is double grace. That's one of my favorite scriptures, Isaiah 55:5.
Okay, yes. Amazing.